Hi, this is Dylan Poppy, known by a handle DillEPoppy here on Modo now, I guess, as well as Twitter, Discord, Twitch. I haven't started streaming yet, but I have my account set up there. I've become kind of known on the couple, originally the Blue IDEX mid-range control modern Facebook group, and then more recently the Modern Spirits Facebook group that's opened up, and the Spirits Discord for playing and talking about a lot this, my own particular build of Blue-Eyed Spirits, which I've recently started calling, referring to as Blue-Eyed Violus Control Spirits. That seems to be the way people think of it when they look at it, to be kind of the shortest way that relatively makes sense to people, to understand what cards might be in my deck when I say that is the deck that I play. So as I talk about it a lot and get a lot of questions about it when people see the list or hear that name, and I've been happy to see there's been some of those questions being actual interest as well. So just having finally joined Modo a couple of days ago seemed like a great way to start sharing some gameplay to give people an idea of how the deck plays, give commentary. So yeah, I'll be doing. So I haven't started streaming yet, because I've just been playing on Modo for a couple days. I still need to get my pace of play up to keep my clock healthy before I start streaming, feel comfortable streaming. But I've done a few leagues already, or a couple leagues, and people have been interested. So I figured I'd record some of my playback and just talk a little through some commentary those games, and then maybe the leagues that I do from now until I start streaming, I might record to do the live commentary. People seemed interested in that idea when I suggested it on Discord, so that's my plan. For now, let's start a basic deck overview. So I started playing Spirits back in Standard. I was just kind of starting to get into buying into Standard, playing very entry level competitively, around when Eldritch Moon was released, a little afterwards. And Spirits looked like they were exactly the place I wanted, so I picked them up, thought they were fun, and it scrubbed out at, it did decently well at FNMs, in like 2-2 or 3-1 FNMs, and scrubbed out when it started trying to go to PPTQs for Standard with it. It was a lot of fun. I loved the deck. People in my shop called me the Spirits dude. I just loved the deck. And when I started looking at Modern, I figured it would be kind of a budget intro to building towards Blue-White Control eventually. But then all of a sudden, last year's modern PPTQ comes around, or modern PPTQ season comes around, and I play in a modern PPTQ. It was my first tournament playing modern, since we didn't really have it for FNMs at my shop, and it was still fairly untuned. Like I was still like borrowing my 4th Flooded Strand. I didn't have Snapcasters at the time. I was playing like a couple Cryptic Command, and then the Snapcaster Mages were like a Nebelgast Herald and a Phantasmal Image or something. Sideward was probably kind of untuned, and it was my first tournament playing in Modern. though I was fairly familiar with the format, just following coverage and such, and I top 8'd. So, much to my surprise, more as much as anyone's. So I thought that was kind of really like, maybe there's something to this deck. I used the top 8 prize to pick up the Snapcaster Mages for my second PPTQ, and then going up to 2 PPTQs in that modern season, and I top 8'd that one as well. So that seemed like a pretty baffling streak to me, and thought there might be something in this deck, and I still love playing it, so I just kept on working on it rather than necessarily my original plan of just building towards blue-white control, although I'd still like to build that at some point. And then started going to a few IQs this year. My first one I was clearly just not awake for, so I scrubbed out pretty hard. My second IQ was a tad on bad side of variance in a couple matchups to not do well, but then third one I finally top 8 again. So of my 5 competitive REL events that I've played in, top 8ing 3 out of the 5 seems like pretty promising for me so far. And now with joining on Modo, I'll be able to see how it lines up in the competitive queues. And I'm planning to start going to some of the bigger tournaments like the Opens or GPs as I look at my schedule to start moving a little higher up in competition. So I'll be playing my first 2-day tournament at the SCG Open when it comes here to Indianapolis in just a couple weeks on July 28th, I think. So if anyone's around in Indianapolis, I'll be giving Spirits a try there in the Open. So yeah, basically, so my approach when I was looking at starting to build Spirits, partially since I was into the format, getting into it, as I kind of implied, a little bit budget, but also just some sort of personal playstyle preferences that add up to, in addition to kind of the core Spirits package. You have Mausoleum Wanderer, Chain Self of Spirits, Spellquiller, Drogskull Captain, and then recent edition of Supreme Phantom. The main thing that I wanted to supplement those were counter spells. This is basically like my number one first thing that I do with my flex spots. You just want some counter spells to have just flexible, relatively efficient interaction for whatever might be thrown my way. There are things that are, not this deck has a lot of interaction already. A Spellqueller is a great kind of counter spell, Mausoleum Wanderer counter spells, but there are things that are not instants or sorceries, or that are more than 4 mana that you still want to counter, or you're dead. And then as I kind of played from being interested in control, I never really liked the card disadvantage of things like Aether Vial or Noble Hierarch and Bant versions, and understand the power of cantrips. So when a cantrip suite originally had 4 Serum Visions, since a year ago these cards didn't exist in Modern. Then when Opt was reprinted, I swapped to 4 Opt, and then a little while ago I swapped out my 4th Opt for 1 Curious Obsession, just to give that a try sometimes. Anyway, once you have counter spells, cantrips, and removal, as I said, I didn't have Snapcaster Mage at first when I started playing the deck, but once I saw I have counter spells, cantrips, and Path to Exiles, eventually kind of dawned on me that it's natural to ask, can I fit Snapcaster Mage? And as it turns out, I found a couple spots in the last couple of flex slots to fit him, and in fact, it's been excellent. Pretty much always happy most of the time that I draw him. And yeah, I've never never looked back. My only regret with Supreme Phantom is that I can't play 3 Snapcaster Mage anymore, at least for now. Well, so on that topic, this was my last list from what I basically finally got into before M19, my IQ list from just a month ago. Basically, all I'm doing right now is, I had to, rather than the 4 Supreme Phantom, I had a additional couple counter spells, 1 negate as a 4th 2-mana counter spell, a 2nd spell snare, a 3rd Snapcaster Mage, and then a Vendilion Click as kind of a 4th Snapcaster Mage, since we don't have quite enough spells for 4 Snapcaster Mage, and also it does some other things that are also great. But otherwise, main deck was the same. Those were the 4 changes they made for Supreme Phantom. I kind of wasn't sure, given the little more controlling list, of whether, my initial reaction to seeing Supreme Phantom was that I didn't want any. But then after thinking about it for a bit, I was pretty certain that at least 2 could fit, and maybe 3 would be optimal. Again, I still wasn't sure with. I want all my spells to be as interactive as possible, and with Supreme Phantom not being interactive, like countering spells or whatever. Like, I always assumed that if Wizards was going to print another spirit, ideally 2-mana spirit, that my ideal choice would be like a spell stutter kind of spirit, or meddling mage kind of spirit, or what's a Titanshift Scholar, like something interactive like that. So at first I thought I'd do 3 Phantom, whatever. But I wanted to give it the maximum testing, and also after thinking about it more, and that it actually does quite a lot, like shoring up aggro matchups, not just for racing better, but blocks really well itself and makes your other creatures big enough for, again, not only attacking but also blocking. Also, keeps your Mausoleum Wanderer attacks consistently high to counter spells more often. So keeps Spellquiller out of bolt range, etc. So it seems to do a lot more than I initially thought about. And also with testing initially, I just want to definitely have all 4 and go from there. If it does in fact end up being not as great as I'd like in this build, then I can cut down after that, or just reconsider whether Supreme Phantom is good enough that if this version doesn't want 4, then maybe I should just switch to a different version that wants 4, like finally go to a Vial version or something. So that's something that possibly might happen in the future. But from a couple leagues so far, Supreme Phantom has been great, pretty great for this, and it still seems to be running well. So I'm just doing the bare minimum changes to bring Supreme Phantom in, cutting those 4 spells, the 2nd spell snare, the negate, the 3rd Snapcaster, and the main deck Vendilion Click for 4 Supreme Phantom, keeping everything else the same, and seeing if I want to adapt anything from there, like possibly play a Spell Pierce over one of these now that I'm a little more aggressive, or maybe Celestial Colonnade isn't as necessary, or as good anymore. And yeah, I guess that's another thing that people find a lot pretty weird, but this has been great for my build. But I just want to start with the basics first and go from there. Then the only other changes I made was I wanted to test out also the other hyped spirit is from core set is Remorseful Cleric. My previous 2 dedicated graveyard slots were 1 Relic of Progenitus and 1 Surgical Extraction. I still think I'm a little skeptical about Remorseful Cleric. I know a lot of people I've been talking to in Discord and such are as well. They just think Rest in Peace is better. I mean, I don't play Rest in Peace because Logic Knot and Snapcaster Mage and stuff. But these 2 pieces have served me quite well. So it's possible those still end up being better. But again, I want. I mean, Remorseful Cleric does definitely seem to have uses, and I want to give it a try to see how good or bad it actually is. So I swapped out those 2. Again, just minimal changes. The only other change that I made was, other than bringing in the 4 Supreme Phantom and the 2 Remorseful Cleric, was that I still wanted wanted Vendilion Click in my 75, so I cut my Disdainful Stroke for Vendilion Click. I do still kind of still want maybe that Disdainful Stroke or at least a second negate still, since like I said I had one main deck negate, so I had 2 negates in the 75. Maybe this Dispel ends up becoming a negate, but I kind of like having at least one of these if I can. Maybe I don't need Verdict as much and can have a second negate or something. But anyway, those are among the many possible other modifications I can consider for the future, but this is what I wanted to start with. So yeah, I think that's basic overview of the deck more or less. So let's jump into, so I started with, well, when I joined Miko, I just did like a new player draft first to start out, and then before jumping into any leagues, I did a sort of quote-unquote league of just doing 5 matches in the constructed open play room. So after that, I was starting to feel pretty, mostly comfortable with the interface and such. So I jumped into one friendly league, which kind of got me most of the rest of the way through feeling comfortable with my deck and the interface. So then I finally moved up to my first competitive league. So start by going through each of those, starting with my 5 matches of the constructed open play. These are probably pretty bad because I said I just started on Miko, probably, I'm sure, misplaying horribly and playing very slow or whatever, but there might be still some interesting things going there. I hardly even remember anymore. Yeah, so this was well, the first one that my opponent actually showed up. So I guess this hand, yeah, looked good enough to keep it. Some ops, Saga Mages, I know. A little heavy on Snapcaster Mages, but at least I have something to do with one of them. And have some lands and a creature, and Droxical Captain on the top is good, so don't know what I necessarily need yet. I can opt on turn 2 and still snap opt turn 3, so I'll just start off with the Colonnade, get that out of the way. Or, yeah, Supreme Phantom, of course. That was my hand. I was just talking about opt. I can opt later. Just want to get pressure on since I don't have much interaction here, and hopefully just try to establish a clock, I suppose. Again, as I'm doing this commentary, at least in these initial constructed open play rounds, I'm assuming that I was actually capable of thinking well enough about strategy. So I'm trying to justify the decisions I made as if I had much intelligent thought going on other than learning the interface. So right here, isn't there anything? This was the first interesting thing probably is Sweltering Suns came up. Obviously didn't have an answer, so I just tried to opt into an answer. And this, so this is a point of showing why I really like opt in this list over Serum Visions. For one thing, as far as the digging goes, like we're not a deck like Control that has just some haymakers and card advantage engines like Supreme Verdict or Planeswalkers like that they need to dig for, and they need to bottom cards that are irrelevant in the matchups. Like our deck is pretty redundant; it's just a bunch of creatures with very similar effects. So the Scry 1 on Opt versus Scry 2 and Serum Visions isn't as big of a deal. Like there's usually not specific things that we need to dig for as quickly as possible. It's mostly just kind of smooths out consistency, helps hit a land drop early if I need it, helps scry to the bottom a less impactful spell or land a little bit later in the game. Also, so the instant speed is very powerful in this deck that can operate entirely at instant speed. Like when you have Rattle Chains out, every spell in your deck except the one Curious Obsession is at instant speed. So being able to dig for an answer to something on the stack is quite powerful, in addition to having Snapcaster Mage where you can hold up Spell Queller, and if they don't do something, then you can just snap opt at end of turn. So all that is just something really powerful. But anyway, so basically that's what happens here. You see I can find a Spell Queller. But I only have this one creature out. They have 7 lands, 4 still open. This is an obvious Scapeshift bait, so I definitely want the Spell Queller, but I do not care about this full turn Suns, because it was Scapeshift bait, and now they have 0 cards in hand. I mean, they have 3 Valakuts, so not feeling great, but not a whole lot I can do except just attack and hope that they top deck a Forest, I think, if I remember correctly. Forest, perfect. Greatest draw in the deck for me. Just opt into something good and keep applying pressure. Logic Knot is good to see off the top. What did I at the bottom? I don't remember. Anyway. Yeah, I was not paying attention to the number of lands and stuff. I was just trying to get that pressure on the board and completely ignoring the fact at least I can save the Spell Queller so I don't just die to Scapeshift, but all my creatures are dying, which I was clearly not thinking about. I mean, not much I could do about that anyway. 6th land is great top deck when you have Celestial Colonnade, so game 1 already shows how great Celestial Colonnade can be, because that's applied a lot of pressure to have them, I mean, basically since they've already drawn a Forest, they probably draw something that's good on this turn. And I guess they do, what was that, Mountain or something. So it's 3 dead, very unlikely to not be dead, but did what I could. This is usually a pretty good matchup, but that hand didn't pan out having the right kind of interaction, and yeah, I was still figuring out how to play my deck. So my first match playing this deck on Moto. I guess just opting here. I want to look for some more counter spells or something, and I have plays for turns 2 and 3, so just get the opt out of the way. I know I just need more interaction, or another land. I guess I only had 2 lands, so lining up a 3rd land at some point would be nice. I think I kept the Spell Queller there. Can't remember if that's what was on top. Just flash in Rattle Chains, because now, ideally we draw a land or a counterspell, in which case we can hold up counterspell plus Supreme Phantom, or land gives me Spell Queller or Supreme Phantom. That's another Rattle Chains. Try to get that out there to protect Spell Queller. Top land wasn't great in this spot. Sometimes Celestial Colonnade is unfortunate, but it's not necessarily like they're not scape shifting this turn, right? So don't necessarily need Spell Queller. But sometimes the top land is a tap land. Oh, perfect. You just want a Selfless Spirit anyway, so. And there's Mana Leak. I mean, Mana Leak isn't always great against ramp deck, but it's much better against Titan, because it's going to be very difficult for them to get to 9 lands to play around Mana Leak before I have enough pressure to be killing them. And yeah, 4 toughness on Spellcaller is great. But I think I'm about to put this Curious Obsession on it to bring it back up to 4 toughness, and that plains off the top is great, so I can still have Spell Queller along with the Curious Obsession. And yeah, I guess he scoops there. Yeah. Click. Nothing for the Snapcaster Mage yet, but you'll get there. Some good bodies. Field of Ruin can be... I mean, drawing another Field of Ruin isn't exactly what I want to see for these color requirements. Obviously, this can happen when you play 4 colors utility lands, but you don't usually draw all 3 of them, and at least these can become colors and have relevant disruption in this matchup, so... At least has that going for it. Pia and Kieran is annoying, but Lord's help. I'm just trying to get in pressure. It's got the lightning bolts. Unfortunately, Droxcall Captain only has 2 toughness by itself, so, you know. I'll work with what you have to work with. Yeah, the old draw step click, and this one's gonna be good. They have 6 lands of Battlefield, Scapeshift, and, you know, 7th and 8th lands, while I don't have any interaction for Scapeshift otherwise. I mean, they get a Blood Parade, you know? At least not just dead. Get that Valakut out there. No, I took their Scapeshift, and Valakut. 1 card in hand. I mean, they're pressuring me, but, you know. There's at least more going for me than there was previously. Not in great shape, though. I'm not sure if there's a particular reason why I did the Moorland Haunt activation. I guess just wanted to save this for Scapeshift and Rattle Chains to protect it, most likely, so. But here, I just need to not die. Shake off. And the Primordial Titan. It's, yeah, a lot of triggers. I think, you guys scooped, so yeah. Sometimes you don't always win. It is a favorable matchup though. I've usually won most of the times. Like in that first modern PBTQ top 8, or not the top 8, but the PBTQ, I played against it. And played against it other times. Did I? The right one. this was thinking I might have clicked round 1 again. Just get Mausoleum Wanderer out, best turn 1 play. And yeah, I got some aggro goblins or whatever is probably going to be tough for me. Aggro matchups are the tough matchups, and when they have Mog Fanatics against my X1 deck, that can also be problematic. I mean, at least they trade. It's not like Grim Lavamancer, but that guy gets big. I just want to trade with him while I still have a chance, especially for that out of the way. I'm going to tap on the mouse pad in case the actual mouse clicking might be loud, I'm not sure, so tap on the mouse pad in case that was loud enough to be annoying to anyway. I'm doing step by step rather than the full play ahead, not only to commentate in certain spots a little bit easier, but also I watched a lot of these matches multiple times, and at least one of them I noticed that I watched several times, like was starting to get to a point where when I was on play, opponent just conceded here. I guess I'd run him out of everything, was about to trade with this guy and have a cantrip, so I was not necessarily feeling comfortable with this game, but I guess I'm still at high enough life total, but so yeah, he scooped. But so yeah, at least one of the games I watched several times seems to end up just like freezing at a certain point in the game and doesn't want to show the last couple turns on the replay anymore. I don't think doing the step-by-step rather than the just full play actually helps that, but I can still commentate a little better in certain spots, and it doesn't go as quickly doing this way. Initially was just going to do the play ahead and not speak at all, just to do this more quickly and not worry about spending too much time commentating, but I figured there were some spots that required some commentary, and most of the best time I could just click through and play. Yeah, so Lords, these Supreme Phantoms are great. They have huge butts. Provide much defense. But, oh yeah, I'm 1-1. And I'm about to die to old standard favorite, not Raminap Ruins. Wah wah. Keith Yao activates an ability of Raminap Ruins. Keith Yao wins. What a card. What a card. That's okay. Not that I expected to win this matchup anyway. I think I've played against, I mean, I've gotten better. Although aggro matchups are tough, they're definitely the matchups that spirits are archetypically unfavored against. Like we're favored against combo and control, and you know, pretty just fair and interactive even against mid-range. But we struggle against aggro. That being said, with my experience in deck and some of my card choices, I've started feeling pretty comfortable against aggro decks in general. Like Snapcaster Mage is a house, and I play a lot of sweeper effects in the sideboard. I guess I forgot to go over some of the sideboard hard choices in my deck tech, as well as what I was sideboarding for these matchups. So maybe I'll try to remember that sideboarding for the next match. I can't remember. I think I've played against this deck like once or twice. Can't remember if I've won. Not sure if it how it compares in difficulty to other aggro matchups. Humans is definitely the worst, but pretty much everything else, I feel like I have gotten to the point where I'm comfortable enough believing that I can win, especially if I'm on the play. Yeah, double Field of Ruin. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be shipping this one back. And a bunch of Lords and lands, and I think that was Selfless Spirit on top. if I saw it correctly, which can also be great. With all these lords, probably not going to be as necessary, and their creatures are so small that I can really trade pretty well, but Selfless Spirit can be great for combat. Saving, being able to block a bunch of creatures, and then sacrifice Selfless Spirit to just eat all other creatures instead of trading. Usually it just stops them from attacking if the spirit's on board. If the Selfless Spirit is on board, in a lot of cases. But it can be a blowout, especially if you can flash it in with Rattle Chains, so that they expected to trade, or that maybe you just wouldn't block, and then all of a sudden you just eat their board. And Goblin Piledriver is sad. Like, I need the Selfless Spirit to survive to trade against it. And that's unlikely against the Mog Fanatic deck. Goblin Piledriver is pretty bad beats me. So I first started playing Standard, I started playing Magic in Born of the Gods. My first card was a Far God of the Polis, and the first deck I made for Standard was just some, like, a Far God of the Polis, like, mid-range kind of control deck. Just have a bunch of Banishing Lights and stuff to get Devotion and value creatures like Omen Speaker and whatever. But anyway, I was playing that, white-blue, basically, control deck during the Standard where there was Stormbreath Dragon and Goblin Piledriver in the same Standard. Protection from white and protection from blue. And, I probably should have learned to just stop playing white-blue at that point, but I'm a white-blue stalwart, I guess, so I took my beats. But I've died to Goblin Piledriver plenty. This one's going in, and yeah, I'm just dead. So, first two matches didn't go all that great. Pretty decent matchup and a bad matchup, but I went 1-2, but then I just, looks like I am going to about to 2-0 the last three. Maybe the first two games are what I needed to get my feet under me for Moto. I think this... this is fun. Yeah, Johnson. So, I think my comment here is, okay, right. So he had some Serum Powders, and I recognize this deck, the Turbo Narset combo, or whatever it's called, where, so I've only also watch Travis Wu about it, so if anyone's unfamiliar, you're going to try to reanimate Narset Enlightened Master from the graveyard with, and I know what it is, Through the Breach, or I don't remember exactly, but you have ways of getting Narset into the graveyard and reanimating her, and then you just attack, and like you cast these big things that give you extra combat phases, and let you just cast cards for free and just ridiculous stuff. So you hopefully chain enough of these extra combats so that your 3/2 hexproof that casts your spells for free just attacks a bunch, and kills them in one turn. And they have Serum Powder. Well, they already had all 4 Serum Powders in Exile. It's pretty interesting. So they have Serum Powder not only to prove mulligans, but also they can get back Narset from Exile into their graveyard with whatever, some 1-mana white instant. I forget what it's called. Yeah, this deck is kind of cool. Of course, this is constructed open play, which is why I'm playing against this deck as opposed to a competitive league, but it's a sweet deck. And with a handful of counterspells, I'm not worried. Path to Exile is dead because Narset's hexproof, but a handful of counterspells, so I'm not feeling too bad. What he dumped in the graveyard, again, more just stuff. I don't know what Spell Snare does, if there's 2 CMC stuff to counter, but Mana Leak and Laundromat, and now Snapcaster Mage. I don't have any pressure until this Mausoleum Wanderer now. And just more counter spells. So, yeah, I think I was, I see the spoils vault, I'm like, ooh, card that matters. But first of all, I remembered, of course, if they cast a tutor or witch roll or whatever, you just see what they get and then counter them. And also this one, they might just mill themselves or die, so let it resolve. And fortunately, my clock is, I was only attacking for 1, but the spoils just gets them down to 9. And then I think they still don't get anything relevant. What were they naming? Or what was he even looking for? I don't remember what he was looking for. Pull from a chain. That's the one that gets. I'm assuming there's. Well, so there was. I think there wasn't a Narset in Exile yet. Is this Exile? Yeah, there wasn't a Narset in Exile yet, but he's assuming that by the time he goes through however many cards before he finds his pull for eternity, that Swords of the Vault will most likely exile a Narset, and then he'll have the pull from eternity to put Narset in the graveyard. And I'll also let pull from eternity resolve most likely and just counter whatever his reanimation spells. Yeah. And he's stuck on land, so like I am not really worried about anything. Looks like this game might also be freezing up like I was talking about earlier. I probably watched it once before, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the replays being buggy. But if I remember correctly, he casts another pull from eternity that kills him to like -15 or something. That was game 1, I believe. So he does me the favor of increasing my clock consisting of only a 1/1. And he kindly kills himself with his own cards. So that's nice. Not going to counter that Faithless Looting. He has very few cards that matter. Just a little clock, especially with Supreme Phantom. I think, like, I'm more willing to counter stuff like that, not necessarily Faithless Looting in particular, but as you'll see later, like Ancient Stirrings or whatever, if I don't have a Lord to make this more appreciable a clock. And also, of course, in this matchup, there's so few things that matter, and I think he's pretty low lands that Mausoleum Wanderer is very likely to counter whatever actually matters later. Logic Knot for a second thing that might matter. And yeah, I think this guy, or opponent's hand was just not panning out, so he just conceded. Yeah, he's commenting in chat that he doesn't win against a deck with any interaction. So yeah, that's this deck. It's kind of cool, but on this one now. Yeah, round 4. I have some spell interaction, my Lord, some lands, getting Inquisitioned, which isn't good. I joke about that he's feeding my Logic Knot with this discard spell. Draw Mausoleum Wanderer is kind of nice. Okay, here, wasn't sure what I'm playing against when I see Swamp Inquisition into Spire of Eternity, so not really sure what I'm playing against, but becomes abundantly clear right here. So the thing I was about to counter this because it's pretty annoying, but I think the main thing I was worried about was I assumed that this deck would have Bridge, and I only have one counterspell left, so I really want to hit Bridge if I can. Maybe something else will come up. Like, I would be... I think the one thing that I was concerned about with not carrying this is, so the other piece is Sword of the Meek, obviously, and Sword of the Meek upward to the graveyard. So like if you counter Thopter Foundry, that's good. So like if they cast both pieces and you're going to counter one, you should counter Thopter Foundry because it doesn't get reanimated. Countering Sword of the Meek just puts it in the graveyard exactly where they want it. So they need Academy Ruins to get this back. So this is the nice piece to counter if you can, but I think and like the 1/1s can be annoying here as well if you just sack stuff like a Fountain to make 1/1s, but I have a Lord here. If he doesn't have more removal to kill it, that'll help my X1s punch through the 1/1s. So I just let it go ahead. And probably go ahead and opt, yeah, just looking for more interaction, but a Jog's Captain's good enough to set up a hexproof lock against this deck that likely has not an unreasonable amount of more removal. Like, they're not going to have as much removal as Jund or something, but yeah, Karn is a card. And as I said, yeah, because there's bridges that can come up, and this has such high loyalty, they're like, I think I decided I don't want to even bother about Karn. These creatures, the tokens it makes can't block me, and only have a couple creatures here. They're decent clock, but I just want to game over with and not worry about the Planeswalker. Just gaining a couple life per turn, whatever. Didn't opt because I really need to now. Like, I have one piece of interaction. I can opt later. Another Logic Knot is a-okay. A lot of times 2 Logic Knots is great, but this game's gone long. I have a lot of lands. I have a decent amount of cards in graveyard, so these are both likely to be able to counter something. Sometimes, if I was playing against random deck at this point, like I might just end of turn. I'd probably just end of turn Field of Ruin, like thin out my deck of land, and I guess it thins out their deck of land, doesn't matter. But the deck probably has Academy Ruins, so pretty sure I thought about that at some point, if I had any reason why I might want to Field of Ruin. I mean, maybe Scry's the bottom that I might want to shuffle back on top. Can't remember. I think both of these previous opts had kept on top, but I want to save that for Academy Ruins. And yeah, he's double duress for my Logic Knots, so that's feeling bad. Was this when he had already had... Okay, no. Oh, yeah. There we go. So, yeah, this, I think this had come up on one of the previous Karns. Skipped over. I gave him something rather than a Herald of Anguish, and I was feeling pretty good about having those Logic Knots, but then he double duressed me. So he's probably getting back Herald at with the silver counter next turn, and I don't have an answer to the demon. That's annoying. Or did he already get that? I see. I think this was the turn he already did that, and then misclicks sacking one of these rather than casting the demon. Yeah. So he'd gotten back the demon from exile with Karn this turn and was trying to cast it, but misclicked on the Fountain of Evil. As you can tell here. I did, but apparently it thought I clicked on Fountain to sack it after that wonderful sequence of double duress top decks. Yeah. a demon there would have been annoying. I mean, he's pretty low, so like it's possible I have enough to punch through it, but I'm pretty glad for that. Opt here, just see what there is. So this Mana Lake I'm heavy, even though the Blood Notes are gone, since I know he's going to be casting Demon, I can add up. It's like 5 black with Improvise, so and he only has 2 artifacts, max 3 if he makes a construct with Karn, so he has to pay 4, I guess, but if he doesn't make a construct, then he has to pay 5, and then he only has 2 mana left for Mana Leak, so I'm still pretty happy about it, and it's not like if I square that to bottom, I don't have anything left in my, I've already drawn the 2 Logic Knots, I don't have anything else in my deck anywhere that deals with the demon. I guess other than this Path to Exile. Path to Exile would be good, but since I see this be good enough, it has a chance if he doesn't make a construct to actually counter the demon. So yeah, it's good enough to keep, absolutely. And I can attack into a 1/1 out of the Slur hits. Oh, he can make a construct, and he is compelled to chump block with that because of his life total as well. So he makes a construct, and he has another land, but if he doesn't make with another land, he's not making a construct. So yeah, he doesn't make a construct, just improvises 1, and I have the brutal mana. So, and so yeah, conceive that one. 2. No, has a spell killer. Rattle Chains. Well, I know. Yeah, it's a hand. It's a discard deck, hard to mulligan as well, so it's a total hand. Celestial Colonnade to punch through more lands. Colonnade not so great against Fatal Push deck, but might not end up being relevant. Probably Fatal Push other creatures along the way. Gate. They're stripping my hand, but like they're already down to 1 card and just have a bunch of rocks. Which, I mean, it's effectively 3 cards, but so. And the Logic Knot's great there. More discard. And more counter spells. And another and a spell caller, so yeah. I'm feeling pretty good about this game. At this point I'll go ahead and counter that. Or spell caller, yeah, that's perfect. Like just punishes him for being out of cards otherwise and not letting him draw out of it. And I get pressure on board. He says he has to run. I guess he had to go do something, so he just concedes, but like I think it's reasonable likelihood that I win that game anyway, so. And on to match 5. I know these particular matches haven't been particularly interesting overall. There are a lot of games in the friendly league and the competitive league that are really, really crazy in good matches, but I wanted to start off with this for just completion of doing the full replays for anyone who's interested, and I guess historical interest of watching me struggle through the paces of learning Yutka. And yeah, I think I had only rewatched the first 1 or maybe 2 of these matches before now, so I actually completely forgot what my other matchups were, so it's also kind of interesting for me to go back and see where I rewatched all the other replays for the 2 leagues. So it's kind of interesting to watch. and another Gemstone Caverns. It's like something I want to. I had tried Gemstone Caverns in this deck for a little while as my 5th colorless utility, just because I wanted to try out all of them. And 4 works pretty well, but that 5th one definitely confirmed that 5 is absolutely too many colorless utility for this deck, even though the Field of Ruins are like half. And I guess in the metagame at the time when I was trying that out, I found having the 2 Haunt and 2 Field were more important in that metagame than the Gemstone Caverns. But I want to give Gemstone Caverns another go now, and I think it'd be with having another excellent 2-drop in Supreme Phantom. I think it'd be a lot better now than it would when it was before. No, it's a mountain, so it's probably Mono Red Prison or something. And Chalice, yeah. Would have loved a spell snare here, but at least I can opt in response some value here on Serum Visions. Like with this hand, I would not have Serum Visions on turn 1. Like I had some Spell Queller, Path, Logic Knot, whatever. And some land, so there's really no reason to Serum Visions. But because it's an opt and it's about to be a dead card, at least I can cast it right now. And I guess I was just fine with that land. I assume this is going to be a Blood Moon deck, and I had an island, and this is a plains. Like if it was just random land, I probably wouldn't have taken it, but because it can fetch plains, I want to be able to get that plains and have the island. And I'm expecting possibility of Blood Moon this turn, so I want to fetch. But as it turns out, there's going to be something else that I want to counter, I believe, so I end up having to fetch blue anyway. Yeah, Goblin Rabblemaster, so... Or... Wait, no, I let this resolve because I forget that Path to Exile doesn't do anything. And I want to get the plains. Yeah, that's what we got, so... As you remember, we 2-0 this game, so this match. So we still work really good, yes. Well, just 1 Rabblemaster is not too bad. But there's more. Spoiler alert. There are more. Yeah, so we want to spell color that. 11 plains of my island. No more 1-man. Yeah, Chalice of the Void has never really hurt me that much. I mean, by that much I don't mean like this much that it has in this game, because again, that didn't matter too much. I guess I can still answer this. Just in general, like it hasn't hurt me very much. Every time I play against Chalice, it's either been on 1 or 2, and we have a pretty even mana curve, so we have like a lot of 1s, a lot of 2s, and a lot of 3s, so no matter which of those 2 numbers they pick, we still have a lot of other things to do. And like Chalice on 3 would probably be the most painful, because those are some really high impact things, but there's never been a realistic scenario for my opponent to get to Chalice on 3. Like Eldrazi Tron probably could do it, but not fast enough for it to matter. So Chalice on 1 and Chalice on 2 have never really caused me much consternation at all. I mean, it has the potential to against certain hands, and like maybe there's been one match or something where it did. But in general, it might hurt like one card in my hand, and I have other things that I can do instead. Yeah, I just want to get that Rabblemaster out of the way. And more Ramunap Ruins. And the 3rd Rabblemaster, yeah. As I said, there were more where that came from. But no, it can Logic Knot. concedes, I guess. I don't know, he still has 2 cards in hand, maybe they're just mountains or something. And I've taken care of 3 Rebel Masters, so yeah, he wasn't feeling so hot about his prospects for the rest of that game. Still at, was it 18 life or something? I don't know. Or, no, I don't know. I don't remember. Seemed probably premature scoop without knowing his hand. Who knows? And this one, he just promptly, he keeps the hand, then concedes. I mean, maybe it's just bad enough and he doesn't feel like mulliganing, I don't know. So, not a fair game, I guess. But yeah, that was my first foray into Midgo, other than I did this new player Phantom Draft, hopped into this open play room, and opponent just was double queuing or something, so he wasn't actually there. So I just conceded that game. But yeah, did those 5 sort of 3-2'd this quote-unquote league of open play matches, and then I'll make next video covering the friendly league, which I went on to first, rather than going to a competitive league. And there start to be some really interesting matches that I will hopefully be playing better and are just more interesting overall. So I hope you'll come back to stay tuned for that. Thanks.